Hey friends, I'm Sherry, and this is the Real Girl Talk podcast show, the podcast for intentional women who want to find abundant growth in faith, finance, and lifestyle freedom. I'm a medical professional, business owner, published author, and adversity recovery expert. So I have the honor of helping women all over the world get unstuck from whatever it is holding them back from living their best life now. So buckle up, Buttercup, and let's dive in. Welcome back to Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. I'm going to ask you a question. Are you suffering from weight gain? Do you have any autoimmune disorders? Are you wondering about hormones and how they affect your lifestyle? Well, listen up, because I have Dr. Marianne Pinkston. She's a family practice physician, an integrative medicine physician in the San Antonio community for over 25 years. She owns a medical spa for weight loss, anti-aging, and autoimmune disorders. She's been voted most compassionate doctor by her patients and best doctor by her peers. You can find her on Sirius XM radio, as well as her own show on all podcast platforms and YouTube. But today we have her right here sharing all of her expertise. Well, hello, Dr. Marianne Pinkston. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have you on. We were chatting just a little bit before we started recording, and we started really getting heavy. And I was like, wait a minute, let's hit
Wait, we got to get this on.
I got to capture this on record. So I want to dive in a little bit because you have a very extensive background. And I was reading, I'm not even going to get into all of the training that you had because I broke out in a sweat when I saw how much schooling and how much everything that you had done. I thought that I had it rough going to nursing school. I mean, going through nursing school when my babies were 3 and 1.
Right.
So just that in itself is a feat. So I will never, ever not have my RN degree. Not if I can physically and mentally help it, because not that I use that anymore, but I do use it because, you know, we keep up with our skill set and we keep up with everything. And I'm still in the industry of medical business. And so it's very important that I keep my RN so I can basically be relatable to a lot of other clinicians, physicians, and nurse practitioners and nurses and staff and so on. So you have a lot of training. The thing that really caught my attention was you have struggled with some areas, health areas, but you also have lost a tremendous, and you look fabulous, by the way.
Thank you.
You've lost a tremendous amount of weight. I'm just going to tell my audience right now, turn it up, pay attention, because if you are overweight, or if you're underweight, you can't gain weight. We're going to talk about how they're both eating disorders, because that was hard for me to recognize. And I didn't want to be labeled as that. So, and you don't have to label yourself, but you have to really be honest with yourself and what's going on. So take us a little bit on your journey and how you started with the rheumatoid arthritis and then the stressors and the weight. Let us learn from you.
Great. Well, thank you, first of all, for this opportunity. I'm thrilled to be on and give my story, and I do appreciate that so much. So I'm about to be 54, and a lot of my journey in my past, when I was younger, I was athletic and you know, enjoyed working out and eating well and all. But as the stressors begin to pile on women, I think I've termed ourselves as super women. You know, we take on the entire world on our backs, and we begin to not take care of ourselves, put everybody else first. And I began to do that. As a doctor, I own my own business, and glad to, but that carries an extra weight on your shoulders as well. Got 3 children that I started this business as I started to have my children, and went through a lot of difficulties with marriage and things that we all go through. I mean, this is what we all go through. So my problem, though, is that I took on my stressors in the form of eating. And I think it was an emotional comfort, you know, I wouldn't eat in front of people, but I would come home at night and, you know, had a little stash in the pantry. And my ex-husband tells me, you know, you had things underneath the bed nobody would see. And that I would just sit and eat at night, just trying to deal with my world around me. Very, very stressful. And as I did that, I also, with the stress, I think developed an autoimmune disorder. So rheumatoid arthritis, I developed when I was 37. In order to get control of that, had to take a lot of steroid medications, and, you know, steroids, not the type that they do illegally, you know, to gain muscle, but just the steroid medications for inflammatory disorders. I had to take so much of it to continue to work. And that was another area that caused me to eat more and gain more weight. So, there were multifaceted portions of what contributed to it. But I
Right.
think the stress ultimately is underneath all of that. And I gained up to 300 pounds. I had diabetes, high cholesterol, hypertension, fatty liver. So, and also autoimmune hepatitis. I mean, I was a disaster. And here I was, a family practitioner, but I'd also opened up a med spa and, weight loss, because I do more than family practice. I do integrative medicine or functional medicine. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a very different style of treating my patients. And I always try to get to the root of the problem rather than just throw medications at people and, give pharmaceutical advice and whatnot. Not that it's all bad. It's not, but I think there's a better way of doing things. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I try to guide people. So I opened this med spa, tried to work on things, with weight loss. And here I am sitting in front of people, telling them to eat well, lose weight, take care of themselves. And I'm 300 pounds. And
Yeah.
and in San Antonio, it's not uncommon, but still, I just, would look at myself in the mirror and I just felt like a hypocrite. It just didn't
Yeah.
mesh. Also trying to take care of my family and telling my family to be healthy and do things the right way, expecting them to follow advice when I am not taking it. And that just doesn't go good with my core beliefs.
Right.
So I spent 13 years overweight though, and it was a difficulty because things so much has changed since probably the late 80s and early 90s,
Mm-hmm.
where in the 80s and 90s you gained like 15 pounds, and that was really a lot. And you
Right.
just lessen your calories, work out a little bit, comes right off. Well, now it is very different. I think the food industry and all has really, really set us up to have a lot more disease and inflammatory issues and
Right.
hormonal issues underneath. And I think that's why everybody now is having such difficulty with weight. I don't think we're sitting around eating bonbons and just, ignoring it. I think a lot of people are having great difficulty, and it's from the industry.
Right.
So with all of that, I have tried to put together, plans over and all through the years. And for 13 years, I would lose 40 pounds, gain 50. I would lose 60, gain 70. Went through some
Yeah.
pregnancy, things like that. I never could get traction on it because of the changes in inflammation, autoimmunity, all of those things. It just
Right.
made it very difficult. So I finally came to a point where it just hit me. That's it. I've got to really throw everything at it. And
Mm.
I think the biggest part of it was to wrap my brain around it in a way that I had to absolutely divorce my food, the way I'm eating. I had to
Mm-hmm.
face what I feel was an eating disorder, and that was to handle my stressors by binging on food, so binge eating disorder.
Mm.
And I had to face that. But finally, when I just wrapped my head around it, I put all the science into it. I did everything I possibly could. And after a year and 2 months, I finally lost 160 pounds.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's pretty incredible. Now, I will be very, very open about it too, because there are lots of different ways of losing weight. And many people who opt to do certain types of weight loss, can be very successful with it or fail miserably. And that
Mm-hmm.
includes gastric sleeve. So I did have a surgery in order to help. The thing that people don't understand about gastric sleeve is that it really is not a cop out. It's not a guarantee at all.
Right. Right.
Many people do it. I didn't want to do the big, large bypasses one. It's a little different. But with gastric sleeve, when you remove that portion of the stomach, what you're removing is a biochemical and neurological feedback system, hormonal system that drives hunger and inflammation. When
Mm.
you remove that, then your body goes back to its old, set point of where the weight you want to be. Like for me, it's about 150, between 130 and 150. It
Mm-hmm.
wants to go back to that. So your efforts actually work. And
Mm.
why some of these medications like Ozempic, Manjaro, and all of those now are more successful, because it deals with that underlying inflammatory problem. Gastric sleeve, if you use it correctly, only allows for about 60, maybe 80 pounds of weight loss. And I had 160 to go. So
Wow.
it helped as a jump start, much like these medications that people are using. Everybody needs a jump start. Everybody needs a place where they just feel like they're getting something accomplished and something that helps make their bodies work with them again in their efforts.
Mm-hmm.
So when I finally did that, then I could apply all of my, education and, work with my eating disorder, get through that. But then finally just push through that entire year and finally get the weight off. And then
Right.
I have to deal with cleaning up the mess after that,
Yeah.
a lot of metabolic problems and skin and things like that. So I dealt with
Right.
that too. And that's good. But yeah, it was a wonderful journey. It's not like I woke up one day, I was, obese at one point and then skinny. There was a
Right.
whole year of transition in that and learning about myself and about other people and their eating issues and
Right.
a lot about physiology and things like that. So it was a great process. I've learned. I'm still learning. That was 5 years ago, and I'm still learning. So it's
That's incredible because I know people that have had sleeve and I know people that it's been successful, but
Mhm.
then they go back to their same way of eating
Absolutely.
and you can stretch your stomach back out and you can gain weight. But
Yes.
also with Ozempic, I think a lot of people are using that for weight loss instead of what it's intended for in pre-diabetes.
Mhm.
My endocrinologist told me I was the only person she's ever met been on Ozempic and never lost a pound.
Yeah.
I said,
That's right.
I don't know what that means. I don't know if because I didn't change anything really.
Mhm.
Actually, probably started. I noticed there was a change, and I did not have. I was not as hungry as I was before,
Yes. Yes.
but it wears off. It
Mhm.
starts to wear off, and then it's almost like you catch back up. But I
Yeah.
wanted to jump into some of the things you were talking about in eating disorders. I think that a lot of times what we don't understand
Right.
is an eating disorder is not necessarily somebody that is bulimic or
Right.
anorexic. It's also overweight. Oh, being
Yes.
overweight can also be an eating disorder, especially if you're not eating to satisfy hunger, you're
Right.
eating to be eating.
Yes.
And one thing that I learned, and my husband says it all the time, he says, sugar is poison, Sherry. Sugar is poison.
Mhm.
And when you eat carbs, you're actually more hungry than if you don't eat carbs, which
Mhm.
I thought was interesting because I could go and I guess make it a keto day.
Sure.
And the minute I eat something that is high in carbs, and I say high, meaning maybe it has
Right.
15 or 20 carbs in it, an hour later, I'm starving.
Yeah.
Whereas if I did not do that, I can maintain, but it's like having an addiction to sugar. Why are we
It
so
is. It is. It,
addicted to sugar?
yes.
And it is an addiction. And people say, "Oh, I'm not an addict." Yes, you are.
Yeah. Well,
You're addicted to sugar. That's being an addict because that's your
yeah.
drug, and sugar is poison. I mean, it really, really, truly is. And let's talk about that. Talk about the mental aspect and what we need to get a grasp on to understand what we're doing is sabotaging ourselves. And why are we doing that?
Well, and to go to your point of addiction, that is absolutely what it is. So when you look at an addiction, what is happening physiologically is you are looking for a dopamine surge. Dopamine is a hormone and is the pleasure hormone. And so that dopamine surge can occur naturally if you enjoy music or exercise or, there's a lot of different things, but we get in a place where gambling, porn, smoking,
Right.
heroin and cocaine, or, there are so many different things and food included in that where we get that dopamine surge. And once we reach that high like that, then we are always chasing that high to
True.
get it again. And normally we never reach that maximal high that we did the first time. And
Mhm.
builds in that repeat loop and becomes an addiction. Now, the other way I say that addictions occur with us or kind of define it is that if you are doing something that you know is harmful to you or to people around you, yet you do it anyway because you're getting that feel good from it, that is an addiction. So it can be anything.
Mm.
It's like, for example, if you are, out drinking with friends and you decide to, you're a little drunk and you decide to get behind the wheel of a car and drive,
Mhm.
knowing that is not the right thing to do, but yet you do it anyway. That is where another kind of a pattern of addiction creates that willingness to put put yourself in harm's way. So the same with food. If you know that you shouldn't be having and eating what you're eating, that it's going to add to your heart disease, your weight, and things like that, but you do it anyway, there's something fundamental. It's not like you're making that choice,
Right.
but that addiction underneath and that pattern of dopamine surges and whatnot are driving you to go against what you know is right. And that is where the addiction comes in.
Yeah.
Now, on the side of sugar, and I've really spent many, many years, learning this, the industry created monsters in us when they came out with high fructose corn syrup, when they decided that, fat was horrible for you. So they gave us carbs and salt and prepackaged everything. And, there's a lot to that, but sugar, or let me take the sugar factor out of it. Sugar generally is not, great for you, but carbohydrates are not bad. Carbohydrates are needed for brain function to get up and go. We need it to build muscle. Actually, carbohydrates are very good. And when we go through these phases of trying to go keto or eliminate carbs completely, what we are doing is recreating a need for something, and that will lead us to get hungry for what we need. And that's why some people will go to carbohydrates, not only for the addiction, but it's something that they need. Your body is going to tell you that is really not right. I think if you can just manage all of your macros correctly and do the right type of carbs are very important. So I'll give you a short example, and that when I wanted to train for one of these fitness competitions, and in the beginning, right before COVID, of course, COVID came and that was destroyed.
Yeah.
But I was 152 pounds, and I was about 19% body fat. As COVID hit and I worked out less, ate a little differently, I went down to 145, but I was 24% body fat. So you can see that weight and all those things aren't really the center around how your body is doing. You want a body composition. Most people, when they lose weight, will discard all of their carbs, and your body says, well, I can't do without it. So it will go to your muscle, and it will to eat your muscle. When you eat your muscle like that, then you're lowering your metabolism.
Right.
Then you're setting yourself up that when you stop eating, the keto non-carb way, your body gets all those carbs and all that water influx, and your weight is going to go up, but you're unable to metabolize it off because your metabolism is broken again. And so your metabolism is slower. So people don't realize that you really have to eat calories to burn calories. You have to have some carb in that, and just to balance the fat and muscle. And also, I'll leave that because that's a huge subject, not really what you asked me. But
it's good stuff. It makes perfect sense, because the more muscle you have, the easier it is to burn fat. And so then we're basically just killing ourselves with trying to stay on this roller coaster of not eating carbs. And then our body is like, okay, well, you're burning all this energy, so I got to go get something. So we get rid of our muscle, and then so we start eating, and then we don't understand why we can't lose weight, because we just cut out the mechanism that helped us burn the fat.
Exactly. And you nailed it right there. And that's it. And so, and on the eating disorder side of things, I think, yes, we look at bulimia, anorexia and things like that as eating disorders, but we don't realize that either binge eating, which is where 3 times ish a week, you kind of overdo it. You diet all week and you're trying to be good. And then one day you get stressed and you go in, you blow it all by eating 3,000 calories in a sitting, and your body starts going through all that. That's an eating disorder as well. But so is, eating a lot of things that we shouldn't eat. I mean, you can overdo it in fat and protein too, and just not eating correctly, and allowing your body then to, begin to tip that scale and get it metabolically out of control. And then you can't get it back. And it's very difficult to break those cravings. It's insanely difficult. And again, that's where some of these medicines do help with that, but it is not a permanent solution. And the FDA approved the medicines for diabetes. They didn't approve it for pre-diabetes at all. Now, are going for the indication there was a time in this last year where we were able to prescribe these medications to people, in that pre-diabetes area. And my thought is, hey, great, let's do that before they get diabetic. It just makes too much sense, right?
Right.
But the industry, especially the insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry, said, nope, that's not what the FDA approved it for. We cannot give you those scripts. There was a shortage because everybody was prescribing it. So we had to stop, let the diabetics have their medication. And so
Right.
now a lot of people, including me too, have gone through compounding pharmacies to be able to have it made. It's the same thing, and prescribe it. And then I do a lot of one-on-one coaching with people, give them the prescription, but do one-on-one coaching, which is unheard of these days for a
Right.
physician to sit with a patient and do these things, but, and guide them through it. I also work with a great counselor, as I mentioned to you before, who
Yeah.
helped me in the eating disorder aspect, to try to fix that brain portion of it. And, it was a lot of support around me. And I think when you get into weight loss, you just try to look it up and join something, buy something, looking for a little bit of a quick fix. You don't realize it takes a lot of support and psychology and, effort and work. It takes people a year or two to change their
It
weight, and,
does.
not get ready in 2 months for a wedding, lose 60 pounds all of a sudden.
Right.
It doesn't work
Right.
that way. It does take a year or more to really get your body, turned around and going the right
And that's
direction.
a huge commitment, because a lot of times you're, oh, that's a year commitment. But if you think about it, we set our goals annually, or we should be
Sure.
setting our goals, and we should be working towards those goals with action plans.
Yes.
The episode of Real Girl Talk that actually aired today, which would have been when this show airs, would have been today, being March 3rd,
Okay.
is all about setting the goals and action steps to achieve those goals, because I'm huge in goal setting. And my husband will say, you've conquered everything in your life and you've worked through that healing. I don't understand why you can't conquer the weight. I said, it's not like I don't want to conquer the weight. It's like I do, but I'm wondering if my why is actually not as strong as it needs to be, because your why power has to be bigger than your willpower, because
Right.
willpower doesn't sustain it, right? And you have to have a
Absolutely.
why. And I believe my why is getting bigger than my will, which I
Right.
believe is what's going to carry me through,
Absolutely.
the weight loss journey, which I am
Oh, you're so
definitely
right.
is
You're
is
so
is is
right.
I'm on it, but I'm not on it. You know what I mean? It's like a mental change in
Yes.
order to
Yes.
really hone in on it. And it's not that I overeat. I don't overeat. I eat all the wrong stuff.
Probably undereat even.
I
Yeah.
do undereat, and I had this conversation with my husband's trainer. My
Mhm.
husband is very fit, but he still has a trainer because he's a friend of his and he holds him accountable. And I think my husband's very disciplined in that. But I had a conversation with him, and he said, Sherry, I can tell you right now, with the way you eat, you don't eat enough.
Right.
And you've lost a lot of muscle.
Absolutely. You nailed it right there. And you nailed a
Yes.
couple of points there, actually, because I also have a trainer, Sonia Romish with Unique Physique here in town. I'll give her a shout out because she's really helped me tremendously. And then it was Sandy Townsend in Colorado that did the counseling for me. These two women made such an impact on me and helped to
Mhm.
carry me through. And what Sandy had told me, because I told her, she said, Dr. Pinkston, it's like you're looking at this like, you're in the next 6 months you're going to lose all this weight and everything's going to be perfect. She said it's going to take you maybe 2 years to do this. And I
Right.
looked at her like she had a third eyeball. I'm like, what? And I'm a
Yeah.
doctor, but she goes, listen, Marianne, it's going to take 2 years no matter what. So if you would start now,
No. Right.
be 2 years from now instead of 4 or 6. She goes, you just got to get started somewhere. What you
Right.
said about that why and that mental why, for a long time, it was, well, I need to do it for my patients, or I need to do it for my kids, or I
Right.
need to do it because, my husband, or, there
Right.
was a lot of different reasons. But ultimately, there was a day where it finally hit me in my heart that I am tired of this. I'm tired of being tired.
Right.
I'm tired of being sick all the time. I'm tired of my own face and my voice of excuses. And I'm going to do it for me and
Right.
really that behind it. When I finally reached that point, I think everybody has to go through these negotiations, and some people could take 6 months. Like me, it took 13 years, but I had to go through all of that and negotiate from time to time. And even with my patients, I have to meet them where they are in that
Right.
process. Not everybody's ready to hear the big full story of exactly how to do it. Negotiate themselves out of eating certain foods. Say, well, I want to eat good 4 days a week, but there are times I got to go out with my family and do that. And it's like, no, you got to change that too. And if they're not ready for that, they're
Right.
just, you reach that moment though, it is doable. The statistics they say are that 1% of people actually accomplish this amount of weight loss and keep it off at the 5-year mark. 1% is kind of a measly number. And I think, dear Lord, we've got to have a better, way
Yeah.
of outcome and up that percentage. But it's rare, but it's wonderful. And, we need to have those conversations with people. And
Oh, I mean, we could actually, there's so much that we could talk about, from sleep to hormones to everything else. And I
absolutely.
wish we had a million hours to do it. But before we do close, I would like for you to touch on, just because obviously a majority of the people that listen to the show are women, just touch a little bit about hormones and how hormones plays a role,
Thank
because
you.
I do the pellet. I don't know if it's helping me or not, but I can tell you this. I can tell when it's wearing off, because
Yes,
I am mean as a snake. I
yeah,
know I start sweating more at night. I'm so
sure.
more irritable.
Yeah,
I do believe that I'm more hungry when it wears off.
yes.
So I do the pellets. I tell my friends, everybody knows that I do it.
That's
So
wonderful.
touch that a little bit,
Sure.
on the
And
pellets and the
if
hormones.
you don't mind, that'd be a great place for me to drop that. The whole hormone talk that I give my patients and everybody is on my podcast. And
Nice.
it was in May of 2021, I believe. And it's called The Hormone Myth. And so drpbetterlife.com is where people can go and listen to that. And so, just as brief as I can, because it's a huge subject, but you are so right. And the pellet therapy is wonderful. It's a technology that has been out since the 1930s. And there are thousands of studies on them, more than cardiovascular health, like hypertension, diabetes, and cholesterol put together.
Wow.
Every single study positive and proves safety. The difference is that it is a natural hormone. So
Hmm.
your body recognizes it as what it made. Synthetics do not have the same effect, and
Right.
everybody's fearful that it's going to cause cancer and heart disease and all these things. But a natural hormone, it's the same hormone in you now that what you made in your 20s, and what 20-year-old has cancer or heart disease? None. What the testosterone does, and most people are like, the women are like, wait a minute, testosterone for a
I
woman?
know.
Absolutely. So men need to be 900 to 1200, women in their levels. Women need to be 250 to 350. So with pellets, with creams, you can apply them, but they get all over everybody else, and it's hard to
Mhm.
detect in blood. You have to do saliva, it's very expensive, all these different things, and it's good and it works. But I like the pellet therapy because mathematically, I can get you where you're supposed to go in 3 days and hold you there for 3 months, and men for 6 months.
Right.
With that stabilization of the hormones, it decreases your heart attack and stroke risk, decreases cancer, Alzheimer's, osteoporosis, and all those issues. And that's what I like for you.
Right.
What you like is the energy and the sex drive. Dear God,
Yeah.
the sex drive. That will save a marriage in a heartbeat. But it's wonderful because you have your mojo. You feel sexy. I mean,
Right.
you want to work out, and you do. When you do, you build more muscle. So
Right.
it's an crazy lifesaver and 100% safe. So I think that, there's just a lot of myths about hormone replacement. When you do it, you do have the energy to work out. You do have the energy to meal prep. You do have the patience to put all these things together, to wait until you get home and make a meal instead of buying something on the way home. And the value of it equals about $25 a week is what the value of it is. People are like, well, $400, that's too expensive for me every 3 months. I'm like, it's $25 a week. It really is. The value of it is there, but it's such a lifesaver, and it does not cause cancer. So everybody
Right.
can throw that out. And
Well, and
even
I like what you said. It's $25 a week. So would you pay $25 a week for energy?
Yeah, you would. Well, you do already if you think about it. So I
Yeah.
give the example that, when I was too tired to come home and make meals for the family or meal prep or whatever, I was easily spending $150 a week in fast food,
Right.
having stuff delivered or whatnot. And that's
Right.
$150 a week. And I was spending it, but $25 a week is just, too much. I was spending $25 a week in coffee just to stay
Oh,
awake
yeah.
at Starbucks. So
I
no,
know.
the value is there and it changes all that. I don't need coffee and I can come home and cook a meal and do more when I get done.
Exactly. And one thing that I noticed, and it's crazy because I'm a nurse and you hear these from your patients and you go, the reason why you feel good is because of the medicine. But I tricked myself. And when I just started doing it after the first year, I was like, oh, I don't need this anymore because I feel
Right.
great. And then I
Mhm.
went, that was the stupidest thing I ever said, because the reason why I feel good and I feel better is because
As I'm
I am
doing
taking
it.
the pellet.
Yeah.
Because the minute it starts to wear off, if I go too
No,
long, like
right.
I can push it a little bit to like that 3.5, but by
Mhm.
the end of that, or the beginning of that fourth month, or the end
Right.
of that fourth month, right in
Yeah.
that period, I can push it a little bit. I
Yeah.
can tell
You can.
there's a
And
big difference,
And
big
the
difference.
the problem is with that is that, if you are, and people are like, well, am I going to become dependent on it, have to do it forever? I'm like, only if you want to save your life and feel better.
Yeah,
Otherwise, no, you don't.
right,
But what we're doing, we're not giving you super levels either. We are replacing what
right,
you are supposed to have.
right,
Therefore, we are improving upon your life and risk factors and all those things. And so, no, it's not an addicted thing or whatnot. It's not
right,
painful. You don't have a bunch of weird scars. There's not infections and things like that when somebody's doing it wrong. It is absolutely one of the
right,
safest, best things I can think of. And it's not a medicine per se. It is made from a potato. So it's plant based. You do
right,
not have any allergies to it or anything because it's the same chemical structure as what your body is supposed to make and doesn't. And we're
right.
just replacing it. It's very, very simple and straightforward and wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because it costs roughly about the same amount as it would to go get your Botox, but yet
Yeah.
people will get rid of the wrinkles in their head before they'll
Yeah.
do their hormones that can change
Absolutely.
their entire life.
Absolutely.
I don't get it, but we all have our priorities, right?
Yeah.
I know that I have conquered that. I've been doing the pellets for many years now, several years, and I've noticed a big difference. So
Yes,
I don't get
absolutely.
paid to say that. I'm just being honest
Yes. Thank
and,
you.
and telling you.
Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Pinkston, we could talk forever, but I want to make sure that everybody knows where to find you, which is most important. And
Yes.
also make sure everybody goes back. If you want to learn more about the hormones, go back and listen to her talk. It's on May 2021 is what we're looking for. And you can go to is it Dr. P
Yeah.
betterlife.com, right?
So probably the easiest thing to do is to hit the website.
Okay,
So drpbetterlife.com.
perfect.
And I have almost immediately the YouTube link or iTunes, Spotify. I'm on every platform. So you would have to look up the whole thing, The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston. You have to type in that whole thing. But when you do, I'll come up. I've got almost 100 shows now. And you can also go to places, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Basically, Instagram is Dr. Marianne Pinkston. So it's all together, lowercase. So Dr.
Right.
Marianne Pinkston, DR, all put together. And there's on Instagram, and the links are there too. So it's really easy to find at that point. All the social media links are on the website as well. And
And you have a program, right? You have a weight loss program that you work.
yes,
Tell us just briefly a little bit about that.
yes. And so there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different tools. So it doesn't have to be, the Mounjaros and the Ozempics and things like that. But I do think there is a place for those, different from like phentermine and all that. Don't do any of that. But I like to get to the heart and soul of it. But I do a lot of the counseling and have lots of great, information to share and whatnot. So really, people can go to my contact form on my website and just say, hey, can you tell me more about this? But also, too, I have a start now at betterlifeweightloss.com. But really, just go to the website, drpbetterlife.com, and you can find me there. And I send information and explain things to people one on one. It's better to do it that way.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I
I have a
appreciate it.
lot of research into diving into all of these things because this is a topic that is huge. Huge. And there's so many avenues. We can talk about hormones. We can talk about
Right.
the sleep. We can talk
Right.
about the weight loss and the mental
Yes.
aspect of
Mental
it, the
aspect. I
emotional
agree.
eating. I mean, it just goes on. And then just being able to identify that you have an issue.
Sure.
People
Yes.
don't like to do that. They're like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
have any problems. I
Right.
don't have to have the cupcake. Well, look at what you're doing. Look at your lifestyle, because that used to be me.
Yes.
Oh, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. And then I thought, just literally, I woke up one day and said, I have a problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it stems from my son dying in 2007, because I've worked through my healing with
Right.
that, but it's a continuous process. And
Right.
I do believe that that is just the last factor of healing for me. And
Yes.
maybe, I talked about this with my husband. Maybe this is just that final thing that I don't want to get rid of, because if I heal completely, then that could actually mean that I'm over my son.
Right.
And I can't say that, because that's not true. So
Absolutely.
it's a mental thing, right? So I want to hang on to something that sabotages me. Therefore, I'm a good mom. I mean,
Sabotages you. Self-sabotage.
yes,
That's the number one issue people deal with. And for you, that is yours. And I had mine, but I was always getting in the way of myself. And
right.
ultimately I took that accountability, but I had a lot of support. And that is very important. Don't do it by yourself.
Do
Grab
it by
people who
yourself.
know what they're doing all around you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
just like my husband. I mean, he's been on magazines and everything else, but he's big in fitness. He's been an athlete, most of his life.
Mhm.
And, even he's over 50, and he signed a contract with Adidas and was in senior softball and all of this stuff. But he still uses a trainer,
Right.
because
Yes.
it holds him accountable. And he goes 3 days a week to his trainer. And, I asked him, I said, you don't need a trainer. You are a certified trainer. He said, Sherry, that's not how it works.
Absolutely. I'm
You
not my own doctor. I can't
right.
doctor myself. I need somebody to help me do it. And my
Right.
trainer helps my form and keeps me on track, tells me when I'm, speaking BS or whatnot, straightens me up and all. It's very important. So
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
because we can really talk ourselves in and out of a lot of stuff, can't we?
We sure can.
We can BS our own self better than we can everybody else.
Absolutely. So true.
Well, thank you so much. It was
Thank
such a
you.
pleasure meeting you, and we're going to stay in touch too.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for this. I truly hope this helps somebody out there. So thank you.
One of my favorite scriptures is 2 Timothy 1:7. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. Thank you for tuning in to Real Girl Talk all the way through. And if you wouldn't mind going back and leaving me a rating review, I would appreciate it so much. It helps me reach women all around the world and help them get unstuck to live their best life now. And don't forget to go back and check the descriptions, where I always have helpful links and resources. And until next week, I pray God blesses you abundantly.